So welcome to Business Women Australia's online masterclass. I'm going to introduce you shortly to the fabulous Kerrie Nobes, but before I do that, I'd like to just acknowledge the country in which I'm zooming in from today. It's the country of the Noongar Nation and the Manjagudba people, I believe. And I would like to pay my respects to elders who have looked after this land for hundreds of thousands of years in the past, and those in the present, and emerging leaders coming through, and celebrate them and recognise the wonderful work that they've done in looking after this great country that I call home. Our partners and sponsors, we could not do any of these things that we do without them. LG Accounting Solutions look after all our bookkeeping and accounting. And of course, all our members actually at the leadership level co-create with us and help share the knowledge that we need to be successful in business and life. So our partnership model is very much around the needs of not just business owners, but also directors, executives, in leadership roles, C-suite women and those on boards. And we have a lot going on within the community in every state. In Melbourne on the 1st of August, we've got our Lunch and Learn coming up, Leadership in the Age of AI, and Jessica Schubert and Sonia Kominos are actually co-hosting that one, and that'll be held at Serve Corp. We've got events in Brisbane coming up, in Sunshine Coast, and we've got lots of online and group coaching that's occurring. Of course, the 27th of August, Kerrie, our wonderful Kerrie, who's on this evening, is actually going to be launching our series, which is around confident facilitation for, and that's an online, I think, 3 or 4 part series. Is it?
Four parts.
Series. So for those of you who want to refine your skills as a facilitator, and if you're having to do a lot of these kinds of workshops and things, it's going to be a great opportunity to get some tools and techniques under your belt. We've got podcasts, some good podcasts that are coming up, and for those that you might have missed, you can catch up on iTunes or on Spotify, on our BWA website or YouTube. But Sonia's actually going to be delving into the growth puzzle, and she comes from a chief operations background and very strong on governance. It's going to be great to have her insights into growing with the really strong foundations. And on the 14th of August, we've got the fabulous Belinda Von Knoll from Chadforth, who's we're going to be going through the insights around planning for a wise retirement. Members join online on the last Thursday of every month, and I think next Thursday our topic is really around sort of confidence, flexing, and thinking about opportunities that we might have that are taking us out of our comfort zone, and what stops us, and so that we're supporting each other to really leap into those experiences. That's what we're all about at BWA, is really flexing that muscle, that confidence muscle. It's not too late. We still have one room to fill. We've got 13 amazing ladies coming to Ubud in Bali, the 7th to the 10th. So if anyone's listening to this recording or wants to join us or needs to just get warm, come on up. We've got an amazing program around leading self and leading others. So it's going to be a great opportunity for some really strong reflection and replenishment and development as in terms of our leadership styles and what we value. So BWA is built on so many pillars of knowledge sharing and authentic connection, and I think our community really is growing around each of the states. We had a fantastic event this morning in Sydney on storytelling that was hosted by RSM. We had a wonderful celebration of 2 iconic Australian brands that have been developed and grown by women, one in wine, 3 Drops, with our fabulous 3 Drops, Joanne Bradbury in Melbourne, collaborating with Jerry Leon at Wesson, who was the first importer in Australia of the big Italian fashion brands. So there's a fantastic fashion show that Kerrie managed to get to. and hosted by Servcorp in Melbourne. We love doing those sorts of things where we really celebrate successful women in business and in the professions across any of the states. So there's loads of benefits being a part of our co-creation model, and I really do invite you to reach out to me if you're listening to this, if you want to partner or if you want to join. We are an extraordinary community of leaders where we view leadership really as a mindset rather than a title. And so the kind of women that we attract into our community are pretty extraordinary. So that's great. Over to you, Kerrie. What have we got?
All righty. So I would really like to just start, because there is just a few of us, to see what brought you along, Katie and Catherine. What were you hoping to get from today, so we can really drive the conversation where you want to take it as well? So what was it that caught your attention?
Well, I think that there is a lot of change going on from just a natural progression change. There's also a lot of disruption in the world as well. And so the combination of those two things is really where I'm hoping we can sort of work through what it looks like to have a sustainable business going forward.
Fantastic. Thanks, Katie. How about you, Catherine?
I'm in my rebuilding stage and accelerating very rapidly with regards to my professional development, as well as recent professional successes, I guess. So there's an evolution in my own personal and professional journey. And so I'm just learning as much as I can from other women and how they've done it, as well as making sure that I have the transformative leadership skills. I've gone from being homeless within the last 2 years to now being a board director for the Department of Health. I've also got my startups, my consulting firms, as well as my startup, and now taking on Big Pharma with regards to women's health and having priority patterns that recently stopped Big Pharma from entering continuous monitoring for women's health and hormones and perimenopause and menopause and Alzheimer's and all that. So it's been an overwhelming journey, and I'm just trying to backfill skill sets, I guess. And
yeah, that is quite the journey.
Sorry. Yeah. So
that's brilliant. That's brilliant. All right, so let's jump in there. I'm in the Wurundjeri lands of the Kulin Nation, but like Lynn want to do that. So we've sort of done just a little introduction, but let's just jump in there because we're a small group. What we're going to look at tonight is really looking at what are 5 pillars that lead into that future ready firm, and what's the difference in leadership from past to what's going to work moving forward. So we're going to share experience in that. So how do we build a culture that attracts and retains top talent? Because I hear over and over again the challenges of turnover and of having to retrain and the cost of that, but losing the knowledge as well. It's also about how we really align and empower leadership teams to work with teams and break down silos across organizations so that you're getting the best from people and positioning firms for that sustainable growth. And all of that really is about leading with clarity and confidence and influence, and engaging those around you to be really inspired to do the right thing and move. So I just threw in some challenges because I know that often when we all get together, it's like, oh, this is a problem and this is a problem. So I've sort of just popped them here so we can look through and you can see which of those apply to you. And if there is something else that you think should be on there, then throw it into chat or just unmute and tell us about it. But what we're finding is that, as we were talking earlier before we started recording, people are getting busy. busier and busier and doing, and leaders are taking more and more on. And in these professional fields that you're in, because there is so much governance and deadlines and consequence if things don't get done, sometimes we end up holding on to them and doing things, and really we're doing all the work in the leadership space, and we need to be looking at how do we take it off your plate and into your leaders that are reporting into you and to the teams, excuse me, so that we can create space for thinking and strategy to move forward for the senior leaders in organizations. So having said that, here are our 5 pillars. 1 is common purpose, connection, courage, curiosity, and consistency. So I'd really like us to explore this in terms of each, and we'll go into each. And how do we go about doing it? What is it that needs to be done? And just getting experience of what's working. So starting with purpose. It's our act to resolve and be determined to do what it is that's going to make a difference and to what matters. And it's really understanding why you do what you do. And so in businesses, this is becoming, when we look at the research, this is becoming such a huge part of where successful firms sit, because if you've got common purpose and people are aligned, they move forward together. So interested in your experience of what sort of things have you done or seen or heard about that help create that common purpose across an organization? How can we approach it?
Hire
Um,
very
All right, Catherine, go, and then we'll come to Katie. Let's throw a hand
Yeah.
up, and then we won't talk
Sorry.
over each other.
I was just going to say I hire very slowly to make sure that people are aligned with my purpose.
Beautiful. Good idea. Good idea. And it's really making sure your interviews questions are looking for that alignment and not just whether they've got the skill to do the job. Yeah, beautiful. Katie, what were you going to throw in the mix?
Well, to me, I feel that my profession is actually very purpose-driven in the first place. And so when we are hiring, we tend to get people who are trying to help. And so it's looking at the values as up behind that I find ends up being the best way to ensure the common purpose, because just because we are all trying to help our clients, and that is the innate reason why we're working, doesn't necessarily mean then we have the values relating to ethics or going above and beyond, or you know what I mean? And so in turn then, for me, the purpose part is easily identified because that's what we're trying to achieve anyway. It's more than making sure that the reason why you're that is so important to you is actually working in the right direction.
Yeah, I totally agree. I was working with a team in finance recently, and when we talked about purpose, they said, well, it's customers. And then they had a little giggle because everyone's like, yes, it's customers. So it was like, all right, so what does that look like? What does that mean? And then when we looked at what the values are that are there on websites and things, it's about understanding what that looks like in life, like what it actually looks like doing, as opposed to a list of words that sound nice. And so having time to reflect on that is really important. And sometimes in busy organizations, we don't really get time to do that. And so I've got this, can you see that? Picture me, it says, or picture this. It's one of the activities that that I find quite useful. It's just like it's pictures, and people can look at those and choose something that looks like what work is to them now and what their leadership feels like to them now, and then what they want it to be. But it's finding different ways to look at it rather than a fully intellectual conversation about it. It's it's a bit about passion, really, of why it matters to you. And it's often lost because we're too busy doing, in what I've seen. How about you, Lynn?
Yeah, I have to admit, it isn't something that I have done particularly well. Particularly, you'd think even like if I was thinking about business in Australia, I was thinking, what's our common purpose? We talk about helping women achieve their goals and dreams, but how is that really instilled into everything that we do? And is that common purpose that we designed 10 years ago still what our common purpose is today? And I was also thinking about it in terms of the clients that I work with, in my work. And I think we get really caught up with just our KPIs. And I really do think that we're so busy just trying to get the work out the door and get on to the next thing that underlying it, we really deeply care about, doing a good job, and deeply care about our clients, or our members. I'm thinking of the different scenarios, law firms that I'm working with, or, private wealth network, our members, we deeply care. But we get so caught up with getting the job done and getting it done within the time that we've got, that I don't know that the common purpose, if I asked everyone sitting around the table, it'd be interesting to put it on the agenda and as what is our common purpose? Let's all just write it down and then say what we've all written down. Would be a really interesting exercise.
I've done that at another business, Lynn, that I was part of, and we all thought we were all over it. And there were 10 people in the team, and 10 people had 10 different answers of what it was that we did.
Yeah,
And
it's
it was
really
really
important.
interesting.
Yeah.
You do want it to be aligned, and you do want it to matter.
Yeah.
And this group I was working with, they were talking about metrics and the fact that everything they get measured on is about the task and the deadlines and the actual doing, and nowhere in KPIs and things is there anything that's driving people to take time to reflect and to make sure that this purpose and what we're doing and why we're doing it is built into the action of what we're doing. So it might be something in there in creating some goals around that, and then having people measured on how much they are doing in that leadership. And we'll look right into the leadership of the different things as we move through. But it is something that needs to happen, and purpose driven. There are so many articles, and I'll send you one that I was just reading to those that are online, but it's a really great article which is really explaining just how much difference it makes if you've got a team of people who are all working to the same point, the productivity and the enjoyment about what they're doing, and then the efficacy of what you're doing. Everything goes up so much if you're aligned. Where it takes time to do that, I keep getting told, wow, I don't really have time for it. But we've got to create time if we're going to be ready to move forward, because businesses are about people. People buy and work with people, and they work with people that they feel aligned with. So if we're going to survive, then we need people to know what it is we stand for and have that consistently across the organization. I was looking at a McKinsey thing, and it said, I've got a stat here, 47% of customers change services if they're not aligned with the company or the people within it. And I think for me, I've certainly walked into businesses and if they're not in alignment and there's that feeling like if you're going to somebody's place for dinner and they've just had a Barney and you walk in and go, oh, that feels a bit odd. If a business feels like that, then I don't want to be there. So it is worth thinking about how aligned that is. But let's jump into the second part of the equation here, which is connection. And connection, again, is really going to be a differentiator because it is about the people. It's about building trusting relationships. And Katie, you've been in business for a while and you've got that, when people know you and know what you stand for and that, you're that reliability and you take the time to foster those, then that's where you really get that loyalty with our customers and people who stick with us. So it's about communicating clearly. It's about engaging them, and it's about, in finance, for example, that, you start with somebody when they're just starting a career and you want to be there all the way through and then helping them with retirement. And it's about taking people on a journey for you. So my question for you all in this space was, how do you go about creating strong working relationships within a business? How do we do that at present?
I'm going to talk. I was trying to find
Katie.
I was going to try to find the hands up and I couldn't find it.
Just your normal hand will do fine.
Okay. Do you know what? I am very good at building trust and relationships with my clients and my network and my social surroundings and all of those things. I have a trusted relationship with the people I work with, but I don't think there is connection. And I don't think that there is cohesiveness with my working relationships, as in my staff. I don't mean as in my further out, like my peers, etc. And I'd say the reason being is purely because I have very high standards and I work very, very quickly. And that makes it quite overwhelming for people around me.
Good insight. It's good insight of what goes there. And I hear very similar things, that there is a sense of wanting to have control of what's going on if you're unsure that people are going to give you the standard you need and that it's going out as your business, that that's scary. And so the conversation I was having with others was really about, it's that old thing of we can teach them to fit, we can give them a fish and feed them for a day, or teach them to fish and feed them for a lifetime. And by taking the time to foster those relationships, they talk about the speed of trust. And I think that's really what this is, because if we've got relationships where people that we work with trust, you don't have to be best friends with people at work. Let's put that out there for starters. You do want to have respectful interactions, and hopefully you can have some fun and enjoyment in there as well. But it's more about being respectful and understanding that everybody wants to belong and they all want to grow and get there themselves. And some of them will take more time to do it. But how do we build that trust so that they can move forward? And trust is two-edged. So yes, it's our character of I'm trustworthy, but it's also our competence. And I think that's where some of these disconnections come, because we're not convinced of somebody's competence to do something. So as leaders, we can hang on to it a bit more than we should. Go, Lynn.
Yeah, I'm thinking about this in regard to some great work that I've done in building an extraordinary young team. And now I'm able to have my succession steps and exit a role with my 2IC coming into the director role. And, you know, this late stage in my career, I've actually done this. I feel like I've done this really well, this connection piece. And I can honestly say, historically, I haven't been that manager. I've been a little bit command and control.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, but with, I decided to apply this sort of the coaching style because I did that coaching accreditation before I took on that role with PWN, I think around the same time. And I've really been almost experimenting with it. And I tell you what, the growth I've seen in the individuals by utilizing a lot of curiosity and questions rather than fixing and showing, which I would have done before. I would have kind of fixed and then shown people how to do it, or taken it off, done it, and then shown them what I've done. And then, you know, whereas this way I've been getting them to be doing a lot more, taking ownership for things, making a few little mistakes, which I've had to kind of, you know, grin and bear. And actually the learning that's come from that has been exponential. It was a bit hard at the beginning, and I'm like, I've just got to trust this, because I was the one taking responsibility for the stuff ups, which was killing me. And honestly, can I even say to this day, the exit and my exit strategy, I'm sure to this day that my executive, that the board and the top leadership team still think that they were my mistakes that were early in the day, and that her ascension into this role is because she is naturally better than me. And I've just got to wear that. It's a real ego hit, honestly. But it's through my guidance and my mentoring and allowing, and that gentle in the background, providing that kind of support, being there to catch her when she fell, like letting her grow and make mistake. And now she can walk into the director role. It's been the highlight of my career, as no one will ever, except for you, my witnesses here tonight, who can say, well done, Lynn, that was real leadership, because I can tell you that no one else understands except her what an incredible,
and it's huge, like
connection
you've
I had as a
created.
leader. Yeah.
And that's what leadership is for
But
me.
there's
Leadership.
no fun in it. It's like,
Oh, but it is. I think that's a matter of opinion. I think it's fun. But I really do think that this is what it is, Lynn. It's about understanding that for leadership, our job is to let other people shine.
Yeah.
And we've been brought up, many of us, that we have to be the person with the answers. And I've had to have the answers to move forward to get where I've got. And now I've got it, and I don't want to relinquish the control on that, because it's my name on the, you know, on the door or wherever it is. And then it's about how do we bring those people through. And it's hard, as you just said, to let go and to go, well, they're going to make mistakes. But the fact that you've got their backs and that you've supported them and guided them rather than fix it and let them learn so that they can move forward, that's huge. That's what.
And a lot of it was around creating a trusted relationship, so that she could share, like, even though it's her boss, you know, she started to share, she had enough trust that she was also sharing, you know, you know, her worry about her own role inside the organization and the limitations of the role and what other things she might explore. And I'm like thinking, God, you know, I would never have shared any of that stuff with my boss, you know, like, this is right. Like, you know, do I question her commitment? And then I started to look at it as, well, yeah, of course I'm going to question her commitment, because she can't see a career pathway. So I had to sit down with her and say, I'm actually working with you so that I am not needed anymore. I'm actually doing myself out of a job. This is going to be your job if you put the effort in and grow and aspire to this. And I thought, I wish I'd had that mentality when I was in the other roles that I've had, particularly when I was with the accounting firms and the law firms, and I had my teams, because I could have created a team of leaders, even if I wasn't leaving that role. Because what she is capable of doing now without me having to breathe over it is quite phenomenal, in terms of the productivity and the output and being able to make decisions on things. And it was just extraordinary. So
Yeah.
it has taken me a while to become that kind of person, very late in my career, possibly too late. But anyway, that would be my message
Yeah.
to the young guns, is like that style of
Yeah.
leader is
Step in
growth.
now.
Mm.
It's time spent that feels like it's taking away, but what it's doing is actually creating a space for people to be able to take things off, senior leaders. And senior leaders are bearing a lot of, overwhelm and burnout because they're keeping things close. And if we take the time to do that, yes, it'll take time up front, but by goodness, give it a year or two and you will be, free of so much stuff, because you've got all these people who are capable and ready and willing, more so, to do it if we build the relationships. Catherine, what's your thoughts there? How do you see relationships and trust build out?
Well, I'm in healthcare and health tech, so trust for me has to be built very quickly with my patients, clients, and now also investors, or anyone who wants to invest in our health tech startup. I think we've been doing it pretty well. I've kept my team small, and also I've tried to open up about my own personal journey. So being a more authentic leader, authentic as a leader. So also looking at, whenever I hire, I'm also interested in the soft skill and where they've come from. A lot of the time I find that people who look at my LinkedIn tend to look at the shine, and I always say, don't look at the glitter and the shine. Look more at the journey of how I got here. So I'm more interested in the soft skills and the resilience and grit whenever I work with people or build relationship. So I'm at a stage in my life and my career at being very particular about who I work with. I will refuse to work even with the best CEOs or board directors, probably at my own detriment, but I'm able to control who I let into my circle of relationship. So, but also looking to learn and better my communication skill at addressing what is it that I actually need from people instead of just doing it myself. So learning to delegate better.
Yeah, delegation comes up a lot, and that is because of that wanting to do the right thing, essentially. And trust in, I was in pharmaceutical sales, Catherine, for a very long time, and nursing before that. So I know that healthcare and pharma area. And it's really interesting for me for connection, because when we're all out there trying to build our clients and things, we talk about internal and external customers. So we often do all the right things outward to outward customers, and then, not necessarily inward, but the two go hand in hand, because it's building connections that have people buy from you, work with you, use your product, use your service, whatever it is. And so building that trust. And I love what you said about being vulnerable with that and being authentic, because that's where we're getting really confused out there. Like you said all day, every day on LinkedIn, oh, is it AI? Is it real? Is it, who's the real person? And by having those connections and being really protective, I love that, of being protective of the culture and who you want to work with. Certainly was part of, why I wanted to work for myself too, in that I get to work with people who are aligned and who want to work in the same way. And so that's what lights me up. And then so we get good outcomes when we work with people that are in that same space. But there's a lot of ways of building connection. There are a lot of assessment tools out there if people are looking to find ways of doing that. If it's not in your skill set, reach out, find somebody to walk through that with you. But there's a lot of strategies and tools and things that you can use that will help you build that, and build it quickly, as I say, because we talk about working at the speed of trust. In a Forbes article, they were saying 94% of employees feel more productive when they're connected to their colleagues. 94%. Now that's huge. So if you've got a group of people who don't feel connected and they're working siloed or as, by themselves, you're not getting the same productivity as a team that are leaning in and helping each other out and egging each other on. I've been really lucky in the past to be part of some fabulous teams where we were all about, oh, this worked for me in a sales arena. Why don't you try this? And just sharing what's working and not everyone reinventing the wheel every 5 minutes by having connection.
One of the gorgeous firms that I still actually have as a client after years and years of them starting out as just 3, and now there's 14 of them. They do a lot of investment into that social cohesion within their organisation. So quarterly, they'll go out and have either after Friday drinks or Thursday drinks or whatever it fits in with the team, and a meal, not a fancy meal, just a meal that the firm shouts them, but they'll have an annual offsite as well, which involves all the team. So it depends on the size of the team, but each little group teams could do this. I know in the big accounting firms, we would have a whole big all firm, almost like all firm conference, and then we would have our halfway during the year we'd have our team opportunities to have our team days, which are really important to do. And when we're too busy, and if we cancelled it in a year, you could just feel that the team wasn't as cohesive and wasn't as invested in each other, being able to do some things, and even bringing into the team day, not just all work. I think one year we had the guys that do build the bikes and then donate the bikes, to charity. We had those, just some fun things as well. So really having those kind of team days are really great to build connection.
Yeah. And you don't have to spend a lot of money to do it. That's for me, and you can build it in to work hours as well. It doesn't necessarily be out of hours, because there's a lot of people who are very protective of their after hours. And so when we go, let's do team building, we'll go out to dinner, they're like, oh, really? But what they want to do is learn that about each other and spend time together. But to build it into a work day, even if it's just, once a month,
accountants
you have a
like
lunch.
after hours, because it's not going to impact on their billable time, and having to write, like, not meeting your KPIs and billable times is more stressful than going out for dinner. So it depends on the environment too, and how they measure their time.
Horses for
So
courses.
some will much prefer that. Then it depends on where they're at in the in the billing levels too, as to how much they value their time at work versus outside work.
Yeah. So it's really interesting. I was at a firm the other day, and they've just renovated, and they were showing me their lunchroom, and there's just these beautiful big open space, and they put on lunch for people. That's what they do. But everybody breaks at the same time, and they go in there, and they even have a quiz master that runs a quiz over lunch. I was like, that is so cool. And that's what I mean, that you can build some of this into days as we go. All right, so let's look at our third, because time keeps ticking on. Third is in leadership is courage. So for me, this is about not just knowing what the right thing to do, it's about doing it. And it can come back into what that connection is. If there's somebody doing something that isn't working for you and you're their leader, you need to have a conversation, and you need to have the courage to have the conversation sooner rather than later. Because if we're not having those conversations and righting the ship, you get people procrastinating. And when people procrastinate, it costs you money, because they're taking a long time to do something that should take a little time, and that's affecting your billing and your bottom line. So courage is about doing it even when you know it's going to be a bit uncomfortable, but knowing that by doing that, you are moving things forward. And there's so many different ways that courage turns up in leadership. It's having a conversation that's going to be challenging. It's about being vulnerable and sharing your story and not having to have all the rights. It's really a whole range of things. So I throw it to you. What do you see as courage in leadership? What does that mean to you? I can see the minds ticking. What's courage to one person may be a comfort zone to another. So it's not going to be the same for all of us. I'm going to step in there in something you said earlier, Catherine, in that you choose people that you want to work with and that you feel comfortable with their ethics and who they are. That's courage in itself, to protect what you're building. For me, that's huge courage, to say there's a work opportunity there and I'm not going to take it because it's not aligned. That's one form of courage I can definitely see from what we've discussed. Somebody was just about to say something. Who was? Yeah, go, Catherine.
I guess taking accountability. My name's on the door. So at the end of the day, I make the last executive decision.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's just, leading by example, and owning my mistakes instead of throwing another person under the bus, let's say.
Beautiful. Yeah, definitely. And accountability is one of those things that is, as we keep talking about, where we've got things that are so important to get done and to do right, that it takes great courage to give people the opportunity to try and support. And as Lynn said, mistakes are made, but to be there and to have built the relationship so that when they're struggling, they're going to ask you, rather than try and put it under a table or pretend it's not happening and hope it goes away. If we've done the right thing, then your team and your leaders will show courage in coming and saying, I mucked up, or I don't know. And being all right to not have all the answers it takes courage to put out, what do you think, and to take in new ideas and not to drive conversation takes courage, because you might hear things that, some people feel like if I put it out there and ask others, will they think I don't know it? Or will it undermine my authority? But it really doesn't. People know what you do and what you bring, and allowing others to explore that and to find what their growth is in this space so that they can take some of that stuff from you and take accountability. Because I don't think you can ask people to be accountable for something if they haven't got the know-how or the resources or the will. It's it's an internal thing, accountability. Yeah, go, Lynn.
Yeah, I'm thinking about sort of the ways that courage shows up in a workplace. I'm thinking about another law firm, actually, a commercial law firm that I work with, and I was thinking about how courage, as you say, for someone, courage might be just speaking in that boardroom. I see the young lawyers. They've got something they want to say. It's, for some of them, it's a big deal to have the courage to share. Even though this particular firm is got a fantastic culture, the managing partners and the principals all sit in there, have lunch. We have these fantastic meetings. Everyone's invited around to sit around the boardroom table. But, the young ones are really quite overwhelmed being around that table, particularly when they're new in, and you can just see over the years that their courage just to speak and put an opinion and to set some boundaries and maybe even to disagree big time. That's, when you hear someone disagreeing on something, it's so good to see that courage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. It reminds me too of me, Lynn, like back in the day when I started in pharmaceuticals, and I'd be sitting up there in Sydney with all the estate leaders and field managers and things, and I was sitting there and I was new into this space, and I wanted to, I was hearing things and thinking, I've got something to say, but I didn't have the confidence to do it. And it's why I do what I do, because I love to work with these emerging leaders and make sure that people have the courage to be heard and to know that they can bring stuff in, because it doesn't necessarily, a title does not necessarily make a great leader. And so I really want, that everybody to realize that leadership starts with self, and, we need the courage to stand up and be heard, because we can make a difference. Every one of, every one of your people and your leaders and your team members have all got something to offer that can help drive you where you need to get to.
Yeah, a big question as a leader is to ask, and this is something that I've been really reflecting on this week, because I was coaching some different members across different team levels, and one of them came to me and said, she's new to this firm, and the person that she goes and asks for help, really huffs and puffs, and so she has to wait for it's the right moment before she goes and asks, how do I deal with this particular issue, or what do I do with that? And she says, taking a lot of courage. Like every day I come in, I'm new to the job, and it takes a lot of courage to go and ask this particular person that I know is the only person that I really should be going to ask, but they're not making it easy for me, because it's stopping them from doing, all my interruptions are stopping them from doing the work that they're doing.
Yeah.
And there's a systemic issue there, and that's something that I'm working with on the leaders. Once I heard that is, has this person who's been delegated as being the trainee person been rewarded and recognised that this is something additional to their work? That's the first thing that needs to happen. But I was thinking about that in terms of, I wonder how many people have had to rustle up the courage to come and ask me for stuff, because I'm really good at what I do, and I can't understand why people take so freaking long to do things. And I wonder if I have that impact on people. Like, it made me sort of push, like think, gosh, I hope people don't have to have courage to come and to ask me for help, or do I need to structure my time so that I'm like, this is like my open door time, so that I can manage my time, like there's things I could do to manage those kinds of opportunities so people don't feel like they're interrupting me, and it's not a good time. Because honestly, with ADHD, when you're on a flow and someone comes in and interrupts you, it takes you so long to get back into that again. And it could be just that, and I know that I can be a bit unapproachable when I'm in that kind of scenario.
Yeah. I mean, often we, when we're working with teams with productivity and things like that, it's about having time allocated for that flow state, and for leaders to have time that they, when you're available a couple of times through the day, as opposed to just open door all day, every day, because that's hard. You don't get anything done. And it's with that understanding that if it's an emergency, then they can come in. But if it's a conversation, then let's do it in at certain times. And you can set up those expectations and boundaries, and so that it doesn't take somebody to really step out of their comfort zone to come in and interrupt your flow. And some people, when we look at the different behavioral models and things like that and thinking styles, there are some that are just naturally, warm and welcoming, and some that we're not. But we can all build, our capabilities in that, and find ways that we can let people know. And sometimes we have to tell them our intent. If it's not, out there, then to let somebody know, I really want you to come and interrupt me. If you're not being able to do what you need to do, then I need that to happen, because I can't have you there, procrastinating. And when there's the Gallup polls and things like that, when we look at the downtime of people, it is scary how much time people spend thinking about what they should be doing or what they want to ask a leader, and then not acting on it, and days go by with nothing being done. Now that's scary. And so by creating this space and building courage in your people is really worthwhile. I was going down the stats rate when I was putting this together. So they say that a HBR article was saying 86% of employees see leadership courage is crucial for success, yet only 26% feel their leaders show courage. So 86% think that it's really necessary for leaders, but they believe that only 26% of their leaders show it. So that's a lot of leaders.
Yeah, but it also makes you wonder what people define courage as too. Like
Yeah, it's very different
how
for
do
each
they
of
see
us.
courage? I mean, we all see courage as different things. Like some people think courage is loud, and our recent roundtable discussion, with the women in that Vida hosted was really interesting, because we talked about courage in a different with a different definition, in terms of what you're saying here, rather than it being loud and brave and bravado. This old concept or stereotype of courage is very much around that masculine energy and that sort of command and control style of
Yeah,
thinking.
I think this actual article was in terms of having the courage to have a conversation, to give
Okay.
feedback at the time. And that, so what was happening was that there would be something there, the leader would be thinking, that's not right. They sort of waiting for something, and then they'll have a conversation a week later and say, back then, and they're like, well, why would you
It's
just
like
speak to me at the time?
brush it under the carpet or
Yeah.
right, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. All right. Anything else to add in courage? What else do we see as courage? Or we move into curiosity, which is my favorite. So curiosity, our drive to learn and understand what's going on for others. So not making assumptions, but really being willing to go, what else might be happening here? Because the world is made of assumptions. Asking questions of people, involving them, and it's about that growth mindset of what can we learn from something. And when people are learning something new, when you've got new staff members, there's going to be mistakes. When we're learning something new, it's part of the thing. But what we need is to have them have the curiosity to go, all right, where did it go wrong? And what can I do differently next time? And it really can open up innovation and finding better ways to do things. So how do you think curiosity plays out in leadership? What are your thoughts for yourselves? Are you curious by nature?
I
or is
certainly
it
love this one from a leadership perspective, as you can imagine. Katie, what about you?
Yeah, I'm constantly trying to think of ways to do things differently and better, and I'm always hoping that other people are thinking the same way, because I just find that life's pretty boring if you're doing the same thing over and over again. And so for me, I am always trying to see whether there is a better or a different way of doing something.
beautiful? And that's how you get ready for what's coming, because you're starting to already go, well, what's happening out there? And you start looking at trends and things and seeing, what am I going to do with that? How am I going to deal with that? Or, what's an opportunity? I think curiosity leads to opportunity. What's your thoughts, Catherine? You got some, how does curiosity play out in your leaders and team members?
Well, I'm a very curious person by nature, and always willing to fail very quickly. So when I built my team, I also look for that attribute in other people as well. The ability to ask and I guess leave a safe space for them to ask stupid questions. What I always say, I'm always asking people stupid questions. So we do foster that in my team, that safe space just to ask. And also to ask anyone, not just the top executives, as well. And just like courage, keeping a safe space and encourage curiosity, the ability to ask question without judgment or the fear of of being judged for it. So that's a part of creating a culture that's inclusive. And inclusivity is not only, even for women, too often we hear about we have to be inclusive, equality for women, but we have to, I guess, remember that equality has to be intersectional, not just white women, with all due respect. And that's my biggest beef when I also sit on boards as well, where boards recruit more women, but it's still the same. What I say is you're changing the pants for the skirt. There's no difference.
Yes.
I guess, sorry, with all due respect, that's a big beef of mine.
That's fair enough.
So it's just being able to ask and to learn all the time and to evolve and have that growth mindset and the courage to ask and to be curious. It's what I do, and I annoy a lot of people. So.
But I bet you open a lot of people's minds as well. And what I love about what you were just saying, Catherine, is that you talked about holding space. And that's what curiosity is building space and time to reflect. Because if we keep doing and we don't take the time to get curious about what is working, but also what's not, and also, what are the opportunities out there or the challenges and how are we going to, work through that? That's all driven by curiosity. But we have to make time for it so that we don't get caught up in doing and just getting things done. But it's how we go about it. But love that. Some great ideas. All right. Let's look at our lucky last, which is consistency. So this one for me is really important because I've had leaders in the past in my own working experience where I've come to an office and I'm not sure if I'm getting Heckle or Giant or Hyde today. And you come in and it's like, oh, I need help. And we watch the body language and yeah, not today. I'll save that for tomorrow. And it's so destructive. So consistency for me is about the approach. It's not about doing things in a, necessarily in a systematic way, although obviously systems play a great part. But the consistency for me is in your mindset of being open and being curious and inviting people to speak and holding self accountable. It's how we show up. Is where I see consistency. So I'm interested to hear what you think about consistency in leadership.
I'm happy to share. I'm reflecting on a time, funnily, that I was very inconsistent. Was a time Katie was well aware of this stuff going down with my son in a time of my life when I had a really big job. And I was letting the emotion and the stress of my personal life, it was affecting my working life. And I was just a bundle of nerves, to be honest. And the welfare of my son was so on my mind all the time. It was so that it just impacted on everything around me. And it was at a time in my life which should have been the pinnacle of my career. It should have been when I knew my stuff, I knew my work so well, and I had a great team. But I was just so it was so hard to be consistent. It took every ounce of my being to try and just hold myself together so I could be that predictably reliable, open, high performing person. And yeah, I don't know why that when I saw this slide, it just sort of hit me like a ton of bricks, just how inconsistent I was at that time when my life was unraveling around me. And I think
Did
as
you get support though, Lynn? Did somebody notice that difference and give you support?
Oh God, it was very obvious. Yeah, I ended up going part-time, and it was it was hard to do a part-time senior role like that, but and it was eventually came to the decision that was when I decided to leave full-time employment, being and set up my own consulting practice so I could be at home and manage my time and be that mum that I needed to be at that time. But I was lucky I was in a position that I could make that decision because financially we were well off enough for me to not have to work. And I just honestly feel for leaders who have to show up every day with the reality of needing to be consistent when your life could be unraveling at home. And I'm seeing this a lot in the work that I'm doing now, with leaders is, we theoretically, we all know this is really important, but it's also important too to be able to create around you the opportunity to have the support you need from your own leadership team, to be able to and to plan ahead for that. I think in your scenario planning when you're building and scaling your organization, to actually plan for how do we manage it when one of our leaders or one of our key men or key women, I use key man like human, when our key person, we've got these key people, what do we do to provide the support that's needed, and how do we make sure that there's enough skills and the leadership knowledge in their teams to be able to support them if something means that they need some time out in order to deal with a crisis of life.
Yeah.
And we see that too, of course, with, major health issues and things like that can happen. It's, not always a problem kid. But these are the real things that make it hard to be consistent.
But for me, when I think about that, and I do, have done a lot of work in the past with, leaders needing to do self-care, because the old, you need oxygen on yourself before you help others on a plane. And that's where I see this, like, consistency is your approach. So it's about being authentic. And if it's not, if you're not in that space, to be able to say, you know what, I'm not up to being what you need me to be in this space, but to have built those relationships and to have the courage to say, I'm not the gal I want to be right now, and that's the consistency in who you are. It's not about, I have to be here in a robot and I have to be able to do these things and I've always got to be there. We are people, and we have people in our lives, and
the values of reliability, which was one of my biggest values, was responsibility and reliability. If you'd asked me before this had happened, what were the two big things that I had shaped my success up to that date, I would say reliability and responsibility are my two core values. You can
Yep.
count on me, and I'm reliable, which I loved. I'm consistently reliable. But
Yep.
it's really interesting how you do your values now. And if I did it now, it's so different, because I'd be equipped with the knowledge that that's actually can be
Yeah.
entrapment in terms
But
of.
it can be a help too. Like, when you think reliable, for me, that reliability is that you can be real, and you're reliably you're not going to pretend you're coping when you are coping, because that's not being reliable, because that's where things go astray. So I believe that if we, as leaders, and I say this so often, that we take on a lot. People take on so much and then think that they've got to be all things to all people. And leaders need to take time to stop and look after self and manage energy and look after well-being, so that they can continue to look after others. Because you can't
Yeah.
be at the top of your game all the time. It's just not, there's life changes that go on, and some bigger than others, obviously. But
And our
it's
team members
about
are the
being you.
same. Our team members are the same. I realized that I had, I wasn't, by my unrealistic ways of working, my team were all expected to work the same way as I was. So I wasn't, by not self-caring, I wasn't really modeling that, and role modeling it. And the benefit of hindsight's interesting. What about Katie and Catherine? What do you guys think about this, about the predictability in your approach, and being reliable with a unified vision and absence of contradictions?
I think that it's a very good idea. I believe that sometimes I struggle with consistency when there is a lot going on, and I juggle more and more things, and therefore I feel that it's important to be consistency. I think that I'm struggling to actually have a predictable approach in making decisions when there is just a lot. When there's a lot. And so I agree that it's important, and I agree that it's something that leaders need to be good at. I just think that maybe it's putting yourself on this high little pedestal of saying, well, if you're not consistent all the time, then you're not doing a good job, when there just sometimes you just can't.
What, your team wants to help you though too. Like,
yeah.
I feel like, if we're getting overwhelmed, if you've got senior leaders like and you're feeling overwhelmed, when you're feeling overwhelmed, you're not at your best. You're not going to make your best, decision making. And there's a whole range of emotions and ways that we're going to work with that. But if you can see your team as that your team, and you're part of a team, then we equip people around us, as Lynn said, that people are learning and growing, and then there is someone else that can step in, and we don't have to bear it all to ourselves. And so finding space to reflect or just to reset is so vital, particularly for those of you that are partners or directors or owners of businesses, because you are the glue for it. And if you're not feeling that you're doing what you need to do, then you need to get curious about, what do I need so that I can get back to where I want to be. And sometimes that's stopping and going to Bali with Lynn and the crew, and thinking about how you can do that. But I feel like we need to build that into leadership as a leadership skill, self care, because too often it gets missed and we put too much on one person to have it all and to do it all the time. So that is not what this consistency is. It's about being able to show up how you want to show up and having strategies and tools that allow you to do that. And when you need to step away, to be able to step away knowing that you've used all these other things we've been talking about and that growth, so that there are people who can step in and help. And that's why it's so important also with silos, to not have silos, because if you've got silos, you might have one half of the business who are absolutely chaotic and have another half of the business that trudging along. Imagine if they can help each other out in some of the skill sets rather than there. I went to drinks with a couple of partners in a finance firm a little while ago, and they brought a couple of their team members with them, and the team members had to introduce themselves. They had to literally share their names because they didn't know each other. Now, big office, but they didn't know who they were in the same office. And for me, that was mind-blowing, that people could just walk in, sit down and do without knowing who's around them. So, that relationship building and that connection, all of those things help us with consistency, and curiosity helps us figure out what it is we need to do to keep ourselves where we need to be to show up how we want to show up. Yeah. So there are five key areas, and I'm interested for you all to sort of share with me if there's something in there that has piqued your curiosity that you might like to explore more or have more information on. I have so much information in this space. I am a rabbit hole girl. I go down there and I'm off into all sorts of things. So if there's any area that you would like some reading or podcasts or things about, then let me know and I will shoot it across to you, because I truly believe if we use these 5 and focus on what our strengths are within that you're going to give yourself the best opportunity to move forward and continue with that success that you're building. And I just think it's amazing at what people can create. And it's about making sure that you keep moving forward. So that's pretty much where we're at. So let's just close it out. We are going we're almost at time. Funny how when you get a small group, sometimes it takes longer or even the same time. But let's jump out of the slides and just, what are you thinking after 90 minutes of thinking about these 5 areas in how we move forward? What's your thoughts? Bit of a check out.
I think it's always good to just check in and make sure that you are thinking about the important role that you hold. And it's just, thank you very much for your time, because it allowed me to just, again, just go, okay, what am I trying to achieve here and what's important going forward? And you always get bogged down with 10 different other things. So it was good to bring it back to
only 10.
Yeah. So thank you, that was good.
Great, fabulous.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. I guess that brought some self-insights, and it's like an accountability pit stop, I guess, to make sure that I have some insight, take some time out to think about each one of those pillars, and just self-reflect how I could do better, or how I have not been doing as well. So thank you very much for that.
Reflection is our friend. Lynn, any last
Kerrie.
comments?
Thanks, Kerrie. I think with such a small group, it's been such a wonderful, intimate opportunity to have your guidance, and I love that framework. I think it's really helpful. And it's timely, because I'm refocusing and rebuilding now what my next steps are going to be in terms of my leadership roles going forward. And, I want to be able to bring greater understanding myself to what I stand for and what kind of leader I want to be, and how I build that legacy, and the succession around, future things that I won't necessarily be a part of, but I will be helping build those foundations for them to be prosperous, like the garden, and be looking at the soil and planting seeds, and then, letting the everything else happen. So I'm quite excited about it. And that's my dog having
having a chat. Yeah, and for me, thank you, and I really applaud you taking time to do give your self time to reflect. You are so worth it, and your well-being is so important for you when you're looking at going forward. So to find those things that do energize you, find what those strengths are and what you want to do, and create that plan. And if you need any help with anything, or touch base. BWA is such a wonderful supporting network that I find all that reflection and support from the group as so helpful as a single person working away and leading me. But I do think that leadership starts with self, so I have to keep me on the straight and narrow too. And having conversations like this really helps me focus where I want to be too. So thank you for taking time out with us. I'm
Thanks.
sorry that we didn't get all the crew that were going
Thank
to jump
you.
in there.
Well, it is, I have this great belief that we are the people who are meant to be here together with each other. So thank you, ladies, for staying on and working through that. I got a lot out of hearing from your scenarios too. Katie, I was thinking about, how you said we haven't got time for networking and time for online things and this and that. So
I know.
true. So true. But I think
When we do make time, it's good.
oh,
So
it's
that's
so
right.
good. Like, yeah, it's been deeply reflective tonight. Yeah, thanks, Kerrie. And thank you, Catherine. It's lovely to meet you, and hope we see more of you.
Very nice to meet you.
We've
Thank
got a
you for the
great
invitation.
cohort in Melbourne. So yeah, look out for there's some in-person events coming up there as well.
Yeah. All right.
Thank
Good
you.
night, ladies. Enjoy the
Thanks,
rest of your
Kerrie.
evening.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.